This week in sports, you know who it is. Romeo Sharp here. All my sports freaks, my freakaholics, all of them out there, y'all. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, a wonderful Mother's Day as well. Just overall, I hope you guys had a good week. And I definitely had a good week myself. And before we get into some of the big things that happening, like the shooting woes happening in the NFL, in the NBA, and then also a lot of NFL updates as well. I want to talk about a couple of things that I kind of neglect in a sense in terms of sports. In the MLB? I don't watch baseball, y'all. I think I already made that known and clear that I'm not really huge on baseball. I'm still trying to get into it and try to learn more of the game itself. But I think the other day I was watching the Padres. I was watching a little bit of that Padres game, and it was funny actually. One of my close friends they're moving to Colorado, and I was telling them like, hey, you actually, if you go to any of the games or any of the sports, it's a pretty cool sports city out there actually. You got the Denver Nuggets, you got the Denver Broncos. You got the Avalanche in the NHL, and then we got the Colorado Rockies, and they have the worst record of 7-30. They're 7-33, y'all. That is actually absurd, And how many games? 162 games in the MLB season 2, and they got 7 measly wins. And on what was it? It was on Sunday, or was it Saturday? Saturday. One of those days. They played the Padres, and the Padres beat them 21-0. 21-0, and after 9 seasons, which I'm kind of surprised because I think they've been one of the worst MLB teams known to man right now. And after 9 seasons, they officially fire their manager, and I'm just thinking, if we put that 21-0, if we put that into NFL perspective or maybe NBA, that's probably beating a team by maybe 5 touchdowns in the NFL. It's that bad. And then putting a whopping 0-2 is kind of insane to me. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then also, and putting in NBA terms, I'm probably being a team by 40 points. I don't know if this was probably one of the worst losses in MLB history. I know it's for sure up there, but yeah, just seeing that, I definitely want to get more into it, and just obviously because I know with the playoffs, when the playoffs come for MLB, I kind of want to make sure I tune in and really try to figure out, who's the best player on each team, who's the best teams in the NL and the AL, all that stuff, like I say, y'all. So hopefully as time goes on, I'll get more in tune with the MLB. And then also, while we're on it as well, I was watching. Well, I wasn't really watching it. I was definitely just kind of peeking from time to time. But I was watching, what was it, John Cena versus Randy Orton. First of all, those two were tanking each other's finishing moves like there was no tomorrow. It was actually insane seeing, what was it, John Cena was about to do an FU. It was about to do an FU, and it went straight into an RKO from Randy Orton. And so seeing those two just go back and forth, that was kind of interesting. And what, didn't R-Truth pull up too? No, yeah. That was during the end, I'm man, what the hell? I'm John Cena won though, right, and retained his belt. Yeah, so John Cena won. And I think that probably was the last time we'll see John Cena versus Randy Orton in the WWE, y'all. Maybe they might cook something up later on in the year, or we'll see what happens with that. And I think then he R-Truth at his press conference too. Yeah, I don't. That's just insane, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. The WWE is crazy. I haven't watched that since I was a kid myself either. So there's those two things, I want to kind of touch on before we get into some bigger things. But let us get into the bigger matters at hand here, y'all. But before we get started, y'all, make sure you guys subscribe below. Subscribe, like up the video, send in any type of comments, any questions you guys have. If you're new here, again, subscribe, like, comment down below as well. Follow me on my Instagram page at This Week in Sports Pod. Same on TikTok as well. And and just keep showing your tremendous support that you guys have been showing me as of recently as well. And honestly, let's get right into it though, y'all. Let's get right into it with the NBA playoff update. We're in the second round, and some of these series are looking really shaky for some of these teams. with the first series we want to talk about, and it happened last night. It was the Cavs versus the Pacers. The Cavs here, y'all, they're in big trouble being down 3-1 to the Pacers. They lost 129 to 109. Don't let this 20-point this 20-point win fool you by any stretch or means. The same as before. Like what was it? DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, they all returned to the lineup after not being healthy most of the series. The Pacers won game 1 and 2 to nullify home court advantage for the Cavs. And then Tyrese Halliburton hit a game-winning 3-point shot in game 2 against the shorthanded Cavs when they were missing DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland. But let's kind of look back at what occurred last night. This game last night was insane. The Pacers were up by as many as 41 points, and they scored 80 first half points, which is probably what is it, the most, not the most, but it's definitely up there as one of the most points scored in the first half in the NBA playoff game. I think the Thunder had 87 the other day actually themselves. So again, this game right here, and I think a lot of people looking at this game, they seen that the Pacers were playing a shorthanded Cavs team, and a lot of people were probably thinking, okay, we're looking at this team with the Pacers, like they're not playing a healthy Cavs team. They could still be fraudulent. I don't know. After seeing this game last night, I don't think I can put it past them as being fraudulent at all. They were up by as many as 41 points, and again, they scored 80 first half points. But 7.5 minutes into this game, Benedict Mathurin, is that how you say his name? Mathurin? Yeah, something like that. Mathurin of the Pacers, he got ejected for punching DeAndre Hunter. And, quite honestly, I'm sure all Cavs fans might be thinking that he needs more than a punching for, not showing up in these playoffs so far. The Pacers, they shot 60% from the field in the first half while posting 12 of 18 from the 3-point range and having 25 assists. Some of the top performers for the Pacers last night, Pascal Siakam, he had a near perfect shooting night, y'all, shooting 9 of 10, 2-2 from the 3 and putting up 21 points. Miles Turner, the defensive guru over there, he had 20 points himself and had a perfect 4 for 4 from the 3. Our boy Tyrese Halliburton, y'all, what the hell? He didn't have his best shooting night, and honestly, he's been struggling in like his last 2 games actually. So off the bench though, we had Obi Toppin. He exploded off the bench with 20 points this game. The Pacers, they came out flying like they have been this entire postseason, knocking off some of these good teams. And for the Cavs though, Donovan Mitchell, he scored 12 points on 3-11 for shooting. With a plus minus of -35, unfortunately. He did miss the second half though, due to an ankle injury. Again, with Donovan Mitchell, he's been playing as hard as he can throughout this series, y'all. He's been trying his best to really, lead the Cavs. You know what I'm saying? Darius Garland, he had a team high of 21 points. Jared Allen was nowhere to be seen in this game, only putting up 1 shot attempt in his 20 minutes of play. Kind of not what I was expecting from him. He has not been playing that aggressive this series, unfortunately. The Cavs, they're in deep waters as they try to avoid elimination. They play tomorrow night, but it's not looking too hot for them. The owner of the Cavs, Dan Gilbert, he stated that they've been here before, being down 3-1. There's a slight difference, I feel like. I mean, honestly, the crazy thing is this Cavs team on paper and obviously record wise is better than that LeBron-led team that was down 3-1 in the finals. But they had 68 wins this season, and again, he said that they've been here before, but this is a little bit different. Like before, you had LeBron James, you had Kyrie Irving, like you had, you could arguably say that this roster might be a little bit better than that Cavs roster with LeBron James. But you have they have Donovan Mitchell, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, no, I don't think Donovan Mitchell actually made it out the first round in his career.
Maybe second.
Maybe made it to like the the second round. Made it out the second round. That's what I meant to say. Like I don't think he actually has never made it out the second round. What was it for the Jazz, and then obviously for the Cavs as well. I don't know if he is capable of leading this team the same way LeBron did, being down 3-1. It's gonna be really tough because, like I said, this Pacers team, like I mentioned last week, that offense, the way their offense works is like they're very high flying. They sprint, they doing sprints back and forth down the court. Like I just don't see. I don't see too much going their way. He's getting an MRI today, actually, for his injury, for his ankle. So we'll see what happens with that. If they don't have Donovan Mitchell for this game 5, I just can't see them making it out of this. They have no sense of urgency from this team. I truly believe that they think they won their championship in the regular season. That's what it seems like. Obviously that first round was, very easy for them, playing a Miami Heat team that, probably had no real business being in the playoffs in the first place. And then now they're playing a serious team in the Pacers, who a lot of people overlook the Pacers even after they beat the Bucks in their series, and everyone thought the Cavs could probably just blow right by the Pacers. And now look at they're looking behind themselves right now and seeing that they need to catch up to this Pacers team. And again, this is going to be very tough for this Cavs team moving forward. Not too sure if they can pull out a win, especially if Donovan Mitchell doesn't come back. He's trying his best out there. If he has to play on one leg, he might have to play on one leg to avoid elimination for this team. Moving on to our next series, y'all, we have the Denver Nuggets versus the OKC Thunder. They've been going back and forth, but this game 4, y'all, was a shooting disaster. OKC, they gut out a 92-87 win to tie the series up 2-2. In that first quarter, though, y'all, both teams combined for 25 points in that first quarter, with the Nuggets only scoring 8 measly points. Insane. The last 2 or 3 games for both MVP finalists, they've been having their shooting woes for sure. After dropping 42 points in game 1 for Joker, in game 2, he's been shooting 6 for 16. Game 3, he shot 8 for 25. And then game 4, he shot 7 for 22. And by his standards, and he knows it, those are horrible numbers by his standards. And I think truly when we look back at it, I think it's really because fatigue could be setting in for this team after a grueling 7-game series with the Clippers. And then, and again, I think, like I mentioned last week, they don't really play their bench. Their bench doesn't really, besides Russell Westbrook, they don't do too much with their bench at all. They don't touch their bench. Everyone's paying 35, 40 minutes, but it is the playoffs, so it is expected for these superstars, for people like Jokic, for Jamal Murray, all these guys to be able to, play a full game. But they definitely need to get their rest, and before they're looking behind themselves as well. These are the 2023 NBA champions right here. They have championship pedigree, so I'm sure they'll figure something out here. But with Aaron Gordon, like I said, one of the X factors for this series, he's been playing really well. He tried to reel the Denver back into this game after having a clutch performance in game 1 and game 3. He hit the game winner in game 1, and then he hit the game tying 3 in game 3 to send it to overtime, where they dominated the OKC Thunder in overtime. Aaron Gordon in game 4, though, he had 15 points to 16 rebounds. Now, Jokic's counterpart in SGA, he struggled particularly in clutch time these last couple games. I think he was like 0 for 7. I don't think he actually made a shot in clutch time. Again, like I said, y'all, clutch time is defined as like the last 5 minutes of the game. And so in game 3, he shot 7 of 22. And then in game 4, he shot 8 of 19. Again, though, game 4 was a gritty win for OKC. The bench played a huge role as players such as Casey Wallace and Aaron Wiggins, they knocked down a pair of threes early in the fourth to fuel a run for them, and both players had 11 points coming off the bench. Alex Caruso as well, he was a key contributor down the stretch, playing stingy defense, and he also was poking the ball out of Jamal Murray's hands in the clutch as well. OKC, they had 12 points in the clutch to Nuggets 0. So in the last five minutes, again, the shooting woes for the Nuggets continued as they didn't score in the last 5 minutes of the game. Shea, he scored or assisted on 8 of the 12 clutch points in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Again, this is a super inconsistent series here with both teams. The Nuggets will need to come out firing in Game 5 and they need more support from the bench, in particular Russ, because I mean he had 6 points in this game. 2 of 12 shooting, 2 of 9 from 3-point range. He had a plus minus of -20. They need the guys, they need their guys off the bench. And then also he was in foul trouble as well. So just, after Russ, you need everyone else to, kind of step up on that bench to at least alleviate some of the pressure off of Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Braun as well. Braun, he played pretty solid yesterday too. And, just they need help Jokic all around, because again, that fatigue, you can see it setting in for him. And this might be another grueling 7-game series if both teams play the way they've been playing. So we're gonna keep our eye out for that for sure, y'all. So the next series, y'all, is the Celtics and Knicks. In hindsight, y'all, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back in terms of this team. In hindsight, if the Celtics have been dominant all series, by the way, y'all, with being up 20 plus points in nearly every game in this series. They did blow 2, which out of this world insane. They blew 2 20-point leads to be down 2-0 with Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges coming in the clutch. And even with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown struggling early on in this series, they're jacking up threes and just shooting very poorly as a team. They still are able to. They're still able to find a way to get it done in Game 3. They're slowly but surely to avoid being down 3-0 to the Knicks. They beat the Knicks 115-93. And again, y'all, like I said, they blew 2 20-point leads in Game 1 and Game 2. They played poorly as a second half team. I think they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league in the regular season too. And now just seeing how they're shooting themselves out of games, actually, y'all. So the Celtics, they went 25 of 100 in their last 2 games from behind the 3-point line range. Now they're sort of kind of fighting their footing in Game 3, shooting 20 of 40, 50%. And again, y'all, just seeing them, not, like I said, they're shooting themselves out of the game, especially Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They're one of the best tandems in the game right now. And just seeing them both struggle in this series. And again, I mean, you live by the 3, you die by the 3, I guess, in this sense. The 6th man of the year, Peyton Pritchard, he had 23 points of 8 of 16 shooting. He knocked down 5 threes himself. Jason Tatum had 22 points himself, 22, 9, and 4, that is. And then Jaylen Brown had 19 points for himself. So, those 3 guys, they played a huge role in this game 4 win for the Boston Celtics. Now, for the Knicks, I'm truly convinced Mitchell Robinson is probably like a gag character or something for this team. He went 4-12 from the free throw line yesterday, from the free throw line, and then I think was it last game? It might have been last game. He actually airballed the free throw as well. I think I know he stated he went on Instagram yesterday, wishing everyone happy Mother's Day, but also saying he doesn't really care what anyone's talking about. I mean, you gotta, you're getting paid to play this game, and if you're not making free. I know there's been probably some terrible free throw shooters in the history of the NBA, but I'm just seeing him just go out there and just smoke these free throws. It's kind of insane. Like I said, I think he's really just like a gag character or something. He's just kind of just there. But for the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, he had 27 points on 9 of 21 shooting, so had a rough night himself. Cat had 21 points. Mikal Bridges, he had 12 on 6 of 10 shooting. Now for Mikal Bridges, his numbers haven't been too flashy this series, but again, his defensive prowess has been showing for sure. He had a game-sealing block and a game-sealing steal in Game 1 and Game 2, but that presence didn't really show in Game 3 for sure. So now if we take a look at this Celtics team, if they did not miss an NBA playoff record of 45 threes in game 1, and obviously had their shooting woes continue in game 2, if they started hitting their shots like they did in the regular season, now this series could have very well possibly been the brinks of a sweep or a gentleman's sweep for the Boston Celtics, and they could have really just got the ball rolling because like I said, it's just their shooting woes. Game 4, it is tonight, as the Celtics do look to tie up this series. Like I said, we're gonna see what happens. If I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. First of all, these are some tall dudes. They got some size to them. Pause. They got some size to them for sure. They got some size, and just seeing them, again, I get it. I guess this is just kind of how they run their offense. They're just chucking up threes and stuff like that. I mean, it's paid well for them. I mean, like I said, they made the most 3 points in NBA history in the regular season, but they got to start using their size to their advantage. I think it's more particular Jaylen Brown. He needs to really just like sit in that paint and play more aggressive. I think they both only had like 4 free throws combined. So it's like they're not initiating. Go initiate that contact. Go try to get a tough bucket. Both of these superstars for sure. Now the next series, y'all, is the Timberwolves and the Warriors. Again, the superstar slayer, as everyone likes calling him, Anthony Edwards. The Timberwolves, they lead the series 2-1 with a 102-97 win on Saturday. Anthony Edwards, he rolled his ankle in that game, but he returned and he had a series high 36 points that game. The troubling news, though, for Minnesota is that even with Steph out, Draymond Green fouling out, the Warriors are up by 5 leading into the fourth quarter and had every chance in this game to steal the game with Steph out now until at least game 6. So again, Anthony Edwards, he had 36 points himself. Julius Randle, he had his first career playoff triple-double with 24, 10, and 12. J.D. McDaniels had 15 and 6. Dante DiVincenzo and Alexander Walker, I feel like they were just doing cardio coming off the bench. They didn't really do much. They didn't really contribute too much for the Timberwolves, especially Alexander Walker. I think he didn't make a single shot. I think he shot like maybe 4 times or something like that. Didn't make one. And then for the Warriors, in that first half, they didn't make a single 3-point themselves. I mean, they had 5 attempts, but they went over 5 on those 5 attempts. And again, this is worrisome if you're a Timberwolves fan and for the team itself, because they were down 42-40 to a Steph Curry-less, can't make a 3-point shot list, Draymond Green playing, getting texts again, team. But Jimmy Butler, he had 33, 7, and 7. Draymond Green, he only had his 2 points because he fouled out. Buddy Hield, he had 14. But the key guy that was helping the Warriors stay in this game and stay contested with the Timberwolves was Jonathan Kuminga. He came off the bench and he had 30 points on 11 of 18 shooting. And we're looking at this game and I'm looking at this series. I think in order for the Warriors to not be sent home early before Curry makes his return, I think 3 things need to happen. I think the main thing is Draymond Green shouldn't be taking himself out these games with these fouls, with the flagrant technicals, all that stuff like that, crying to the refs and stuff. I get it. I mean, he did come out and stated that he feels like, he got a bullet or, a target on his back, from the refs and just from all these teams, just for his attitude and his play on the court. And I think the next thing, though, too, I think Jimmy Butler needs to play more consistent himself. And then the last thing, too, is I think Jonathan Kuminga needs to contribute largely off the bench again, like how he did in game. And this game, again, they lost game 3, but game 4 is tonight as Minnesota looks to take a 3-1 advantage over the Warriors. And I think they need to get this win, like I said, because they want to try to get out this series as quickly as possible before Steph comes back, because if Steph comes back, who knows, how much sway will go towards the Warriors if he does come back. Who knows? Maybe he does come back and it doesn't really make a difference for the Warriors, and they might end up losing this series. But I think for the Timberwolves, they should definitely take a look in the mirror and say, okay, not to play around tonight and get out here, escape a win for sure. you know, and then with all these like shooting woes and everything like that, actually, a former NBA player, Rudy Gay, he came out and made a comment on what was it? I think on Twitter or X, as it's called. He said, "I'm convinced nobody knows what to do inside of the 3-point line." And then it was posted on Instagram, and I seen the post, and I seen people saying to blame, you know, Steph Curry or someone like, you know, and I'm like, seeing that they're saying to blame, I'm like, no, I don't think you should be blaming Steph Curry. You know, a couple of these playoff teams, like Boston and even Minnesota, they actually shot themselves out of games. And like I said, I mentioned Boston. I think Joe Mazzulla, like, he lives by the three and dies by the three. Like he's stood on business in sense of, he says that he does not care. He wants them to still play how they play, even with them having their shooting woes over there in Boston. We'll see how, they still been, like I said, they've been dominating New York regardless. You know, I think this kind of goes into play also New York's. Let's give New York their credit, because defensively, I believe they're switching a lot in terms of on the defensive side, and, you know, clogging up the lanes in the paint as well for New York. So, you know, let's not discredit New York as opposed to just Boston having shooting woes and just trying to chuck up threes every time. You know, like I said, in the Wolves, they shot themselves out the game as well. Now, like, this could be cherry picking perhaps, but it is a bit troublesome. And I think it's kind of been like a topic of the NBA for the last couple of years, actually. I guess you could say since, you know, Steph Curry's, you know, it came to light. But I think there's a slight difference between Steph Curry and the rest of the competition. You know, Steph Curry, you know, he's built for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of these teams, they don't got the right personnel to be just chucking up threes and, you know, wishful thinking and stuff like that. You know, and I think Rudy himself, you know, he can speak on this as, you know, one of his strengths was made inside the 3-point line, honestly. And he was a formidable ISO scorer from the mid-range anyways. So, you know, he's not like the greatest, but, you know, he definitely has, you know, because he definitely wasn't a 3-point shooter by any means. He was not. But, you know, Rudy Gay just himself, you know, he has some say in this. And obviously, like I said, I think this has been a topic that's been, you know, spoke upon, you know, for the last couple of years in the NBA. You know, a lot of, you know, 3-point attempts, like the 3-point line is just like, is the new layup in a sense. And me personally, I kind of like it. I kind of like seeing these teams just, you know, chuck up these threes and stuff like that. I think it kind of speaks on the defense, like the shift on defense as well in the NBA. A lot of teams just they're playing a little bit more aggressive inside the paint, regardless. You know, they're not scared of you know getting that contact and, you know, getting in fouling at all. So it's like I think it's just like that whole spill going on in the NBA as well. But, you know, like I said, I kind of agree with Rudy's comments. And again, I think this is not unprecedented by any means. Like I said, this has been something that's been talked about for probably a while now in the NBA. So now with all those games, like I said, we have a couple game fours tonight. A couple teams looking to, you know, get a slight lead in their series and stuff like that. We're gonna keep our eyes on for all those games tonight and for the throughout the weekend as well, as we get into we're getting closer and closer to the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, and then next thing you know, we're in the NBA Finals. So let's do a quick shift though, y'all, because we got some updates in the NFL for sure. And well, before I get started with that, like I said, if you're new here, if you're brand new here, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Leave comments down below, any questions you may have. Like I said, I really appreciate all you guys' support, you know, throughout these last couple episodes. And let's just get this ball rolling still, y'all. So, y'all, Derek Carr, quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, most notably known as the quarterback for the Las Vegas Oakland Raiders. You know, he retires, y'all, after 11 years and battling a rigorous shoulder injury as well. You know, Derek Carr finally retires. He finishes off with 41,245 passing yards, which is top 25 all time in the NFL. He had 257 passing touchdowns. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, and when I mean 4-time, and I'm talking like 2015 to 2017, Derek Carr, he was something else, y'all. I want to give him his flowers. You know, he was that man's a gunslinger. Again, he has stints with the Raiders and the Saints, I mean, unfortunately, he didn't have the best rosters with either team. He only made the playoffs once with the Raiders. I mean, they made it twice, but he broke his leg. He broke his leg in 2016. That 2016 season, that could have been something for him. I mean, he was third in MVP voting as well that year. So if he just didn't get hurt again, I think it was against the Indianapolis Colts where he broke his leg. If he didn't do that in 2016, who knew where the Raiders will be at that point? And so that's a big what if in that sense. Again, he's 0-1 in the playoffs. He also has the most passing yards in NFL history without a playoff win. And again, wins aren't a QB stat by any means, y'all. I don't think that too much, but at the same time, I think he didn't play too well in that game against the Bengals. So I don't, so it still reflects on you if you can't perform well, regardless of the team around you. And again, the Raiders, they didn't have a really good roster in his 9 years with them. They only made the playoffs twice with him. And don't get me started on the Saints. The Saints, I mean, actually, you know what? The Saints actually had a good roster, actually. The Saints had a way better roster than what the Raiders had, and they just still couldn't really, they couldn't really do much with Derek Carr, and then with the pieces they had. And I think they just were hit with the injury bug altogether, that whole team, not even just Derek Carr. You had people falling off like flies, in a sense, for that team. The gunslinger, he hangs it up. He gave it all he had up until the very end, y'all. I think in week 13 of last year was the last play of Derek Carr's career, presumably. It was a 9-yard scramble where he tried to leap over a Dory Jackson to try to get the first down. I think it was on second or third down, I believe it was. That looks like to be the play, because I think he also had a broken hand. He had to be battling a concussion. So it's like he was just beat up. But the thing about Derek Carr, y'all, is like he never really cheated the game. As a Broncos fan, just see, during the years of 2015 to 2017, his 9 years with the Raiders, I'm gonna be honest, like he carved up the Denver Broncos, and he just seeing him do what he did with that team, like I said, congratulations to Derek Carr. It sucks that this is the way it had to go for him. Like I said, he's not to discredit him, he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback by any means, y'all, but he definitely is. He was very consistent as a quarterback, and he made plays when they needed to be made. And so, like I said, shout out to Derek Carr for that 11-year stint he had. So, but let's look at the state of the Saints quarterback room right now, y'all. Let's look at the 3 quarterbacks they have on that roster as of right now. They have a rookie, they have a second-year player, and they have a third-year player. They have a combined record of 0-7. Spencer Rattler is 0-6. Jake Heiner is 0-1. Let's look at that rookie that they drafted over Shador. Tyler Shuck, he had the second worst quarterback accuracy versus Power 5 schools, which is all right, buddy. I mean, he played like 7, like I said, he played like 20 years or something like that in college, but he has a completion percentage of 42% when he's pressured, and 58% when he's blitzed. And then he has a solid completion percentage when he has a clean pocket. But my room looks amazing when it's clean, of course. So anybody's gonna look good when the pocket's clean, when you don't have someone in your face 24/7. But looking at the New Orleans Saints, he's gonna have to deal with people being in his face majority of the time in the NFL. And then, like I said, but the New Orleans Saints, they got to develop one of these guys, whether it be Spencer Rattler, whether it be Jake Hunter or Tyler Shuck. One of those guys will have to step up to the plate. If we look at the other 2 guys, Spencer Rattler has a completion percentage of 57 in his career. Again, he only had 6 starts. He has 1,317 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jake Heiner, in his lone start last year, he had a 46% completion percentage, had a touchdown and an interception. Now I'm looking at this, I'm like, is this the worst quarterback roster in the NFL? I think it is, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe on top of maybe even the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll get into them later in this show as well. But those two teams have probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL. I think the Saints might be trying to claw their way out of fourth place, dead last in the division this year. Again, the NFC South is a very weak. I think it's one of the weakest divisions regardless. So, you got the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young. Who knows what they're going to do. You got the Atlanta Falcons with, Michael Penix Jr., so they got the second-year player in him. What are they going to do? You know what I'm saying? So, honestly, fourth might be, not too bad in terms of these teams might the winner of this division might be an 8 and 9 team. You know what I'm saying? It's not unprecedented for sure for these teams. This division to be as terrible as it is. And again, so I think with the Saints, we're going to see what's going to happen with them. Maybe, if Arch Manning does declare for the draft next year, they could get someone like him again, or, one of those other guys. So if they can get him, will he be the savior for the Saints? I don't know. You guys let me know what you guys think, because
I will start watching football. I will start.
And that's reasonable, because like I said, watching him at Texas, and we get to see the full picture, y'all, of Arch Manning. So when he came in a couple times for Texas when Quinn Ewers got hurt, granted, he didn't play nobody too serious. I'm trying to think, who did they play that he played against? Did they play Georgia and he was there? No, they were going to bring him in. No, they did bring him in because Quinn Ewers actually struggled against Georgia last year. So, and he didn't pan too well against them, but we're getting a full season of Arch Manning. Like I said, this is, who knows, he might even go 2 years, actually. It might take 2 years for him to, come out of college himself, but it would probably be the smarter bet, you know what I'm saying? But again, Saints, worst quarterback roster in the NFL. They're probably going to be fourth in the division and, fighting for a top 3 pick next year. So, shout out to them. If Shador pans out in Cleveland, I'm gonna be honest. If Shador pans out in Cleveland, they're probably gonna, Saints fans, they might be on some type of watch for a little bit. But we'll see what happens there, partners. So we have another big trade, y'all, as well. George Pickens, a wide receiver out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he is officially been traded to the Cowboys. Y'all, look, y'all. I talk shit about the Cowboys. If there's one team that I will dog, it's the Cowboys. But I think they're putting me to sleep. They're shutting me up, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. They're shutting me up a little bit because they're making some moves. They're making some actual moves this offseason. It's been a while that we've seen them do something like this. So the Cowboys, they traded a 2026 third round and a 2027 fifth round. So a bag of chips, basically, to the Steelers for George Pickens and a 6th round pick. In 3 years for George Pickens, he had 174 receptions. He had 2,841 yards. He had 12 touchdowns in his all 3 years in Pittsburgh. Now, you're looking at these numbers, and it's like, okay, that's like some of these. This is something like, what is it? Justin Jefferson could get in a year and a half, if we're being honest. He could put up these numbers in a year and a half himself. But if we're looking at George Pickens' situation, he had average to below average quarterback play throughout the entire his entire stint in Pittsburgh. He had Russell Wilson. He didn't play too well. He had Mason Rudolph. He had Kenny Pickett as well. He had guys like that, and it's just like, it's not gonna really pan out when you don't got a good quarterback. But it speaks for for Jerry Jeudy. He had a breakout season for the Browns. And now granted, he didn't have the best quarterback play either, but because he had I don't even know who the hell. Oh, Jameis Winston. That's who it was. Jameis Winston was over there. And so it you just see, these underrated, wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 1s for, teams that have, been struggling at the quarterback position, as they leave certain situations, they blossom. And I kind of wanted to see how him and DK Metcalf would pan out. They both got a similar personality though, so I think this is best for him. I think he needed a fresh start with his issues, his on the field issues. Like I said, I think he's labeled as one of the divas alongside DK Metcalf. They're one of the two divas in the NFL in terms of the wide receiver room, and I think he actually embraces that as well. And you know what's crazy? You know what is crazy? Is it was not the owner, Art Rooney, or it wasn't even the GM, Omar Khan, that initiated the trade talks, but it was actually Mike Tomlin. So if we look at the comment from George Pickens, actually, because he came out and he stated something about this this team right here, and he said, they the cheapest organization, ain't no stacking year after year. They're gonna let them go too soon as it's time. Which is like, and I'm looking at this comment right here of George Pickens, and I kind of agree with him. The Steelers are a cheap organ. Now they're a good organization. Do not get me wrong, but they are definitely cheap. There's been this cycle of, and it's a pattern with wide receiver ones coming out of Pittsburgh and leaving before they get to their second or third contract. So you had guys like Martavius Bryant. He got shipped off. Obviously Antonio Brown. I mean Antonio Brown's on something else, y'all. But Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, what is it? And George Pickens now, like all these wide receiver ones in a sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they get shipped off before their second contract. And obviously they pay money. They pay their money on different occasions. They will pay Cam Hayward. They will pay T.J. Watt. They're gonna pay guys like that, but they're not gonna be paying these wide receivers because I think they just don't think. I don't know. I don't know what. And it surprises me because Mike Tomlin is the guy who actually who initiated his trade, and I thought Mike Tomlin kind of stood up for him. But if we look at it, obviously this is a rumor, that it was Mike Tomlin. Who knows how true that was? But George Pickens went out himself and kind of stated that he can't control what anyone thinks about him. He's just gonna play ball. He's gonna play ball. So, but let's look at this revamped Cowboys offense now. So they got George Pickens alongside CeeDee Lamb. They drafted Jaden Blue, the running back out of Texas as well. They got Javonte Williams. I think they got Miles Sanders too. So they're that running back room. It's not how it used to be. With DeMarco Murray, the younger days of Ezekiel Elliott. Because let's not act like Ezekiel Elliott was not just bulldozing through the league in his stint with the Cowboys. Now, they have the potential to be one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. Let's kind of take a look at some of the at least established wide receiver duos. You have the Lions with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. You have the Vikings, obviously. They got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So that's an established wide receiver room. And also the big one and probably the number one is the Cincinnati Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then we also have and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith as well for the Eagles. Now, if we look at it, there's a couple new pairs as well. So we have the CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. We also have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams over there in LA. So, we have some of these top tandems. We'll see if and I think if George Pickens, and if he can play how he usually plays, obviously can, trying to ignore the noise of whatever everyone's saying on the outside, because people are going to talk, people are going to say things about him. But if we look at this team, like I said, this wide receiver duo could be one of the best. But the only issue I have, because I can give the Dallas Cowboys their praise, but I can't give them too much. I need to bring them back down to square one, or back down a couple levels for them. So I think with the Dallas Cowboys, they still don't got no one to protect Dak really, because they lost almost every single one of their offensive linemen to either free agency, trade, or retirement. So who's you can have all these guys to throw the ball to. Who's gonna protect you, and then who's gonna throw the ball? Let's not. I mean, look, I'm not a Dak Prescott fan by any means. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? He's not my favorite cornerback. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna see what happened with the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure, the Cowboy fanatic fans, they're probably thinking this is their year, but I think they've been thinking that for the past maybe 30 years. So maybe they still they still got some time. They did trade for Joe Milton too, so maybe if Joe Milton, if Dak Prescott doesn't pan out, they can just throw in Joe Milton, who has a very strong arm as a quarterback. So maybe he'll dice something up for them, but who knows? I still don't like Jerry Jones. I don't like you, Jerry Jones. You need to just give up the reins. So you still need to give up the reins, please. This offseason is not saving you. Okay, you are still by far one of the. I mean, in terms of like financially, you're probably one of the best owners in the league. Because I think the Cowboys are now like the most expensive team in the NFL. I think it's like like $5 billion or something like that. But everything besides that, you're still probably one of the worst owners, because you're very arrogant in terms of who you want and what you want to do. So it's like you want all control of the team, and guess what, buddy? That has done nothing for you for the last 30 years. But that's okay. Now the Cowboys, if we're looking at the NFC East too, if we look at the we got the Giants, who only have Malik Neighbors. So we'll see what happens with them. You have the Cowboys that now they have CD and they have George Pickens. You have the Commanders, Deebo Samuels and Tarek McLaurin. And then you also have the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. You have him as well with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So you have some really good. You're loaded. It's loaded in the NFC East. It's gonna be a dog fight for sure. I don't think the Cowboys will win the division, but it is what it is. I'm done with my rant about the Cowboys, but that's all I gotta say. Now let's look what's next for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now the Steelers, again, they're notorious for somehow, some way shipping off their wide receiver ones. Not too sure what they're going to do with that. So they lost their leading passer in Russell Wilson. They lost their leading rusher in Najee Harris, and they lost their leading receiver in George Pickens after losing Russ in free agency and Najee in free agency and trading away George Pickens. What is next for this Pittsburgh Steelers team? Are they going to roll with Will Howard? They're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. So I'm looking at this Pittsburgh team. Granted, Mike Tomlin, I guess he is a good coach. He's been doing it. He's been consistent his entire time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if we see I don't know, y'all. They it seems like the AFC North has gotten stronger, and everyone around them, at least. You know what I'm saying? The Bengals, they're beefing up that defense over there. You got the Browns, I'm not gonna count on the Browns. They're probably one of the worst ran organizations. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? They can't save a quarterback to save their lives. That's a graveyard over there. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully Shador pans out, though. Shador, hope he pan out. Dylan Gabriel, hopefully it was well. We'll see what happens. But, and then you have, the Ravens. The Ravens ain't going nowhere with Lamar Jackson and stuff like that. So if we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and look at what their roster looks like, it doesn't look too shabby. It don't look too good. I'm gonna be honest with you. That looks like maybe a 4, 5, 6 win team over there in Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? I think this might be Mike Tomlin's first year of having a below 500 record. I think this might be it, because like I said, Aaron Rodgers isn't the savior. He's not gonna be the guy that's gonna come in and just make everything peaches and rainbows again. No, that's not gonna happen with them. So when we look at it, I don't know. I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers making the playoffs this year. I don't even see them winning 8 games, especially with the state of this roster. That defense is still there. Defense wins championships, of course. The old saying, and it speaks true, because we've seen it in the past. But when we're looking at this Pittsburgh Steelers team, yeah, I don't think they got a shot. But we also, y'all, today was announced we have our first game scheduled for the NFL season. So on September 4th, Thursday, September 4th, we have the NFL has announced that the the reigning champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, will be taking on actually the Dallas Cowboys. So we get to actually see Dak Prescott with his new toys in this first game of the season. And then we get to see the defending champs, look to, continue what they're doing over there in Philly as these divisional foes face off. I want to give my early prediction, and you guys already know where I'm leaning towards, because I don't like the Dallas Cowboys. So, you know what I'm saying? I think overall, because the Philadelphia Eagles have they have one of the strongest defenses in the NFL. So I think with guys like Cooper DeJean and stuff like that, I don't see the Dallas Cowboys, I think they're 7-point underdogs right now, I think, actually, as well already. So I can see the Philadelphia Eagles, they are. Again, they hold the crown in the NFC East, y'all. They hold the crown in the NFL. They won the Super Bowl. They just won the Super Bowl too. So this season opener, which was an interesting choice by the NFL, I think I can kind of see why they did it, because like I said, the Cowboys are revamping their offense, and then obviously it's the Super Bowl champs. Of course, we want to see the Super Bowl champs in the first weekend of the NFL. So my predictions here for this team, I got the Eagles probably winning this game, barring anything crazy happening within these next couple months, in terms of hopefully no one gets injured, nobody gets traded before the season starts or anything like that. I can see the Eagles, and they host the Cowboys too, so it's gonna be in Philly, like this. And I mean, with the NFC East, these rivals, is very unpredictable. And so, like I said, the Cowboys could probably come in and can wax the Eagles, but and then if they do that, y'all be prepared for Cowboys fans to jump on the high horses and literally state that this is their year. So if they beat the defending champs and the Philadelphia Eagles, they might be on their high horse again. So, and I'm not ready for that. So, well, y'all, with that being said, that's the end of this week's episode of This Week in Sports. Again, if you guys enjoyed the videos, if you guys enjoyed the live today, please continue to subscribe, like and comment on the channel as well. Follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at This Week in Sports This Week in Sports Pod on, like I said, on all my social media handles. And like I said, y'all, I hope you guys have a great and wonderful week.